Yes, hello. I'm talking here with David Morimoto, and he's the Director of Natural Sciences and Math at Lesley University. And he wrote the grant for Echo Dudes. Hi, David.
Hi, Sharon.
Could you tell us a little bit about that program and what inspired you to write the grant?
Sure. Well, I'm a biologist who's been transformed by nature, and I wanted my students to have the same experience, and I wanted them to learn science by actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought the best idea was to study the natural environment within the community in which the university was located. And so we also had just started at Lesley University at that time, this is about 5 years ago, a civic engagement initiative. And so I thought I'd mesh the two together, get the students involved in civic life and get them engaged in doing something for the community in the context of scientific research. And so over the years, my students have been doing research through an environmental field research course, and last year I decided to try to formalize this a little more and bring the community much more into the process. So I wrote a grant called an Area for Nature project, which was really trying to build community through nature to try to make area for an area for nature, at least in people's minds, and really use the transformative power of nature to bring people together and to do scientific research, to do real ecological research within the community.
And what was the focus of your research?
Well, we have that was determined in the past by students and by me, and this year we determined it with the help of residents in the community. The grant brought together a group of people, including Lesley students, residents from Area 4, including members of the Boys and Girls Club. Actually, they're not involved yet, they will be, but Cambridge Science Club for Girls, Cambridge Adventure Camping were all involved, and a couple of adult residents from Area 4 were also involved. And so we had a series of trips during the summer. We visited a forest in the town of Weston, Massachusetts, to look at forest ecology. And then we had 4 trips to Cambridge to look at urban ecology, and 3 of those trips were in the Area 4 itself. And our last meeting culminated in coming up with a list of study questions, just to get to your question. And they were generated by people in the community, as well as someone from the Department of Public Works, Ellen Coppinger, who was also involved. And so we this year are studying rats.
We have a lot of those in the Area 4.
We're studying invasive plants in parking lots and other types of lots. And we're also studying the possibility of removing paved surface in order to mitigate stormwater runoff problems, and green roofs as well. So there's a diverse group of research projects being performed by 3 different groups of students in conjunction with people from Area 4.
Now, will you be working with the DPW when you resurface areas and put plants into
Well, we're not
paved
going to
areas?
we're actually not going to do the resurfacing. We're just going to sort of do a feasibility analysis. And all my students have to participate somehow in civic life. They have to attend at least one community meeting or community event, and they have to also engage municipal officials from the city of Cambridge. And the whole idea is really to bring more people in, and so we're going to reach out through brochures and through the Fletcher Maynard Extended Day program, as well as Cambridge Science Club for Girls, and hopefully as many people as we can get to help us actually do the research in the field, but also through brochures and training events to try to get more inclusive citizen science involved, so people can study things in their own backyard and gather and produce basically a huge database of scientific information that could be useful both to the community and to the city of Cambridge, and really transform the view of everyone has when they walk down their own streets.
And the name Echo Dude stands for something larger.
Yes, it stands for Ecology Dedicated Urban Diversity Experts.
And I have my awesome T-shirt, thank you. And also, what types of goals do you have around looking at invasive plants specifically, because you emphasize that as something you really focused on?
Well, it's really thought of as one of the most important threats to the biological diversity of life on the planet. That's not to say that invasive plants aren't important in some way in cities. I mean, the tree grows in Brooklyn was actually a tree of heaven. and we counted 1,304 Tree of Heaven individuals in Area 4, most of them small, but a few big ones, and one gigantic one right there, I think, on Elm Street, in the neighborhood. And so they provide shade, obviously, but they also have insidious effects on the ecology of the area. They can release chemicals that prevent other plants from growing near them. They can cause all kinds of allergies. They can grow into sewer systems and other structures around fences and signs. And so we want to catalog them and map them, find out where they are in order to help formulate a picture of what the situation is, and then maybe contribute to management plans for controlling them.
Mm-hmm. And how have the different individuals in this program, it touches upon so many different types of people, children, college students, adults, how have they responded differently, if at all, to this program?
Well, they're very excited about it. I think by word of mouth it's going to spread. We still are at the very early phases of it. We're really going to start the research this fall. In fact, my students will be in the neighborhood tomorrow during our class from 2:30 to 5 o'clock, and they'll be working out the details of the research protocol. And in subsequent weeks, for the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll hopefully have some kids and adult residents and others hopefully involved in the research with us. And we'll another part of the project is to develop outreach programs so that we have informational brochures and presentations, nature walks, events around nature that involve the community. So we want to have a presence at Pride Day. I feel like I should move to the neighborhood, actually, because I'm getting to know so many people in the neighborhood, and there's clearly an interest among the people who live in the neighborhood in this project, because when we're doing the research or just walking around, several people are curious and stop and ask us what we're doing, and they seem very interested. And they always have interesting stories to tell. And so that's really rich, and for my students, it's the best learning experience. They learn science by doing it, and they learn that science is not in isolation from other things, and they learn what it takes in order to make scientific information valid in terms of having a policy decision impact.
Now, when you have children on the field trips, do they actually help with the research in some way?
They will be, yeah. They haven't. We had a couple of kids from Cambridge camping this summer. We didn't really do any research. This summer it was just sort of training. But we will. We'll have them measuring things and writing things down, and most importantly, just identifying things so that they know what is what. I mean, I grew up in Jamaica Plain, so I'm kind of an urban ecologist, even though this is the first time I've really done urban ecology professionally. And what transformed me was working looking in the compost pile for worms with my father when we were going to go fishing. But it really wasn't until graduate school that I realized that there was a systematic study involved in being a naturalist and a natural historian and an ecologist, and I just became infected by that, and I just couldn't stop learning things. And I know when I went back to my neighborhood, everything looked the same, but it was different. It was transformed. And my students are the same. I mean, they can't go anywhere without noticing Tree of Heaven and other plants, and so it just changes your perspective on your own place, and it changes your sense of place.
Now, you had mentioned a phrase of something to do with plant life deficit in the city. Could you expand on that idea?
Oh, that was, there is a plant life deficit in the city. There's native species deficit in the city. And I think you might be referring to what I call nature deficit disorder, which isn't really a plant deficit. It is a plant deficit, but it really refers to the deficit of nature in the lives of people, especially children, these days compared to the way it's been pretty much for our entire history and prehistory as a species. And Richard Louv, in a book called The Nature Deficit Disorder, or actually it's called Last Child in the Woods, which is about the nature deficit disorder. He claims, and there's a lot of evidence really to support this, and it just makes a lot of sense that immersion in natural surroundings is essential for normal physical and psychological development. The complexity of the natural world, especially if you have unstructured time in nature, it teaches you things. It teaches you things about perspective and scale, about mortality, about life in general, in profound ways and in ways that might surprise you, and in ways that still I haven't even discovered. And it affects your whole physical development as well. I mean, when we were walking through the forest, it was very different than walking on the streets of Cambridge or any other city. I mean, it's a much more complex environment. It's a whole body experience. And when you think that most kids these days are sort of devoid of that kind of experience during development, it really must be having profound effects. And it might be one of the reasons why there's so many cases of attention deficit disorder. In fact, Richard Louv in his book makes a connection between the numbers of cases of ADHD and nature deficit.
It sounds like you have a very complex, large vision for this project. It deals with plant life, the natural sciences, it deals with psychological elements, it deals with community elements. And can you just talk about more about the biggest vision you have for this?
Well, to build community through nature, and to trust in the process of nature transforming people in the way they relate to the place in which they are, the way they get to know the ground under their own feet, to borrow a phrase from a thesis that a student of mine recently wrote about this very thing. So, and I'd like to spread it through the whole city and beyond. I like the neighborhood scale as a way to ramp it up, or as a module for the project, because it seems to make sense that things like this would occur in neighborhoods.
And can you name how people watching this show can connect with your project? What are some specific events coming up that they can be there and let you know they're interested? Well,
we want to have a presence at Pride Day, which I believe is this Saturday. Unfortunately, I can't make it. It's been canceled and postponed a few times. I think we'll try to have a presence at as many meetings as possible and community gatherings as possible. But they can certainly contact me at Lesley University. There's several people in the neighborhood, Yarrow Cleaves, Minka and Busicom, who are eco dudes.
Yes.
And so they can certainly be a good person to contact if anyone wants to get interested, if anyone's interested enough to get involved. And we'd really love everyone, as many people as possible, to get involved. I'd love to have a program where kids go home and they look in their yards and they collect data and they contribute it to a large database that everyone can access online, and so that it becomes this shared place. And I think that if the project succeeds, it'll reach a phase transition where that sense will start to really become palpable.
Is there an email address they can write to you at?
Sure, Morimoto, that's MORIMOTO at lesley.edu.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Now we're having our second guest, David Fichter.